Wellness in the City. This is Barbara, and it is really wonderful to be here and spend this half hour on focusing our hearts and our attention on happy things, on good things. There's a lot of need for this because of complicated situation in which the world found itself, but the key to resolving a lot of problems is when the hearts are happy, when they're filled with joy, because if they are not, then they lose hope. They don't see ways to be fruitful and loving. So we have to really understand how important happiness is, joy in our hearts is. I've been reading Psalm 69, which is a very powerful psalm that teaches us how to deal with our sadness and sorrow and depression, bad things happening, by connecting to the Lord, by connecting to God. And that is something that somehow I did not understand in the context of politics. But the psalm is written by King David, so he has executive authority, and he has this amazing connection to God. He has conversations with God, and God is teaching him about politics, but also King David feels like he has now a connection to the throne of the Lord that is simply a wonderful gift and a beautiful way to learn how to be a ruler. So we were talking about how King David is aware about problems of his soul. So the whole psalm is about salvation, but salvation that is connected to the current situation of the king. He knows that there are certain things that only God can heal in him. And that is very powerful for me, because the way I grew up is to think more about afterlife in terms of salvation, and it's very important, but we don't really have control over it once we face the eternity. Then everything is in God's hands. But here, it's conversation between the king and the Lord while the king is alive. So this has been a life changer for me, because I realized that we can have those conversations here on earth with God who loves us. And I think that that is something that the world needs. The world needs to know that authority that we have is often filled with demands that are impossible to deal with. We have a situation today that is very dangerous. Somehow the media is still caught by surprise by what is happening, and they don't have the words to deal with this. But we have a situation in which the world leaders of all nations are unable to find shared communication with each other. They create certain groups, they connect on some issues, primarily market related, but they don't have the vision of peace and vision of salvation that strengthens life here on earth. So here we have King David addressing the Lord, I sink in deep mire, where there is no standing. I'm come into deep waters, where the floods overflow me. I'm weary of my crying. My throat is dried. My eyes fail while I wait for my God. So I'm very emotional about it. So we have king that understands the lack of salvation in his life. He understands the importance of his soul being healthy, and he addresses the Lord. And what do we have today in the world? All those mighty leaders with great weapons and great tools for communication, they get together and they scheme about things that have nothing to do with God. This has been happening last few weeks, and there was nothing in their meetings, in their speeches, pronouncements that was calling to God for salvation of their countries and the salvation of the world. And I was asking a question, why? Now I'm at this level that I just want to know why the world authorities lost that contact with understanding salvation as one coming from God. When you look traditionally at many traditional countries that have been around for at least 1,000 years, many for even 5,600, 6,000 years, somehow there's always awareness of divine will in all of the leaders, whether they were pagan or Christian or Jewish. In Israel, it's second nature, because God of Israel is Adonai, so Israel has that direct connection to God. And we need to start asking the question, why is it that authorities of pretty much all countries of the world, I've been looking at all of them, they have no idea what divine authority is and what divine will is. Zero. There is an entire focus on civil authority and on each other. And it's possible that that is the problem of that divided vision in which world leaders can't find shared ways to talk to each other and receive vision of peace from God, who created all of us. He created all world leaders. So I think that this is what we have to ask God to teach us. So on behalf of all world leaders, I ask the Lord for that teaching connection to all world leaders, so that they will know that there is value in searching for that wisdom from God, and then they will learn how to connect with each other in virtue of divine will that comes from God, not from them. So I think that in current world we have difficulty understanding difference between divine will and civil will. King David knows that when he is in danger, when he's overwhelmed with sadness, just impossible situations, he has a way to talk to God about it and receive God's direction and healing. But when we are in a situation which many countries are sinking, they are disappearing, they are collapsing, and they leaders don't know how to talk to God about ways to get those countries on the right path. So I advise our world leaders that they will start looking for it. There's a great way to learn about it from Psalms written by King himself, and then really asking God to help them see the way of virtue that comes from heaven. And I believe that this is something absolutely accessible to all world leaders. I can't imagine God would reject anyone from any blog, from any side. Just the fact that the person is responsible for lives of many people and direction of relationships into the future, that qualifies right there for God to take it seriously and listen to such cries of leaders. And I think that when we understand it, when we add that dimension of divine will to authority, the solution of international communication can happen at that level. I took many courses in international relations, and there's like no word about it. This for me is also a new understanding of international relations. And how to do it, I don't know, but I asked God to show me how to see international relations with addition to divine will, because God is not eliminating civil will and civil laws, because they organize lives of people, but he adds this high level dimension to understanding of how to create peaceful ways in civil societies. So here King David asked the Lord, "Deliver me out of the mire and let me not sink. Let me be delivered from them that hate me and out of the deep waters." So here we have two situations. One, people who hate King David for no reason, but also deep waters. And that is something that is beyond human control. For me, this is like a way to create understanding that there are certain things that are happening on earth that only the maker, the creator of the earth, can heal and free us out of. And that is all the things connected with forces of nature. But here, deep waters is not only in the physical way, but also in the way the soul responds to being alive. And this is something, again, that only God can heal. So we see in this psalm need for having understanding, searching for knowledge about the relationship between divine will and civil will. Within the enemies, we can discern human aspects of emotional way, but within deep waters, we can't do anything about this without God. When we look at history of the world, we see that throughout the generations, many leaders had that understanding. And I think we should return to it. We should learn how to activate it in modern ways, in modern great achievements of technology and medicine. But seeing what is happening in the world today, we clearly cannot handle the deep waters that have been flooding souls of many countries and leaders. The king continues, let not the water flood overflow me, neither let the deep swallow me up, and let not the pit shut her mouth upon me. So you see here aspect of authority that is beyond civil authority. And I'm sharing those thoughts with you as a political scientist trained by MIT that has huge knowledge in political theories and philosophies and political ways. And when I read this, I know that we have great heritage of people who understood it somehow. That knowledge is not transmitted in political science departments. I don't think that we even have professors who know how to do it. So I encourage you to be innovative and search for that understanding and connection with God and see what He tells you. From what I know, He's very individually treating everybody who asks Him at a level that the person can understand. So in my case, God has been teaching me, knowing how little I knew about divine will, though I know a lot about civil will. Somebody else will have other backgrounds, and I think that is the way that is very beautiful and very virtuous, and it's something that reconnects us with the best aspects of soul heritage from our ancestors, many of them who knew that. And I think that when we add that level of divine will, dimension of divine will, which is impossible without God Himself doing it. So this is not something that civil will can will it, and that's the difficulty. But God is real, and He loves the countries that are currently in very dangerous military conflicts, countries like Israel, Russia, Ukraine, many other countries that join together to participate in those conflicts, though they don't do it directly, but they are involved, like all European countries, America, China, India. We are seeing it this week. Arabia, all countries are involved in that military conflict involving countries that already knew the divine dimension of God's authority. Russia, for 1,000 years. Poland, 1,000 years. Israel, 5,000 years. More than five, I think maybe even almost 6,000 years. So we have a situation in which countries that are the most in hope of having God free the earth from those deep waters are those that are involved in very heavy losses, very heavy military battles and fights. So I ask God to come with His grace to the military leaders of all countries and show them how to use militaries in peaceful ways for defense, and how to get out of the current dangerous wars. God can do it. So in closing, I invite you all to ask God to show you ways you can help in bringing that divine will to your lives, and how we can move into future with vision of peace, living beauty, and understanding that relationship between divine will and civil will is valuable. That through understanding of how to shape civil will through divine will, we can achieve peaceful ways, peaceful housing, opportunities for our children and grandchildren to have their futures, their beautiful lives, and that we can have very peaceful coexistence throughout the world. I really believe that it is possible, that there are certain things that have happened over last 30 years, 40 years that created a foundation that right now is dangerously engaged in very bloody wars, but we can have the fact that all countries have some way of connecting with each other at the civil level, that if God comes in with His divine will, He can show us how to regain joy in political lives of all countries, how to regain happiness, how to live, just live, getting up in the morning, doing things, going to sleep, getting up. The daily life is very important. And this psalm that I encourage you to study, I will continue studying it because it's so hopeful in direction that God can free us from the most dangerous situations, both in interpersonal conflicts, but also in problems of the soul, like deep waters overflowing it. So I think that we should ask God for that light of salvation for all of us who are alive, to enhance beauty and health of lives, so that all will know that God loves them, that God loves us. And I think that will be the level in which God can grant us vision of peace and ways of peace that will end the current conflicts, and that will show us how to go into the future with Him on our side and with us. So I think that this may be an opening opportunity for many leaders who already know God to feel free to ask Him how to connect to civil law, what they already have in their faith, and how to have beautiful conversations with Him that they can share in public, like King David. Thank you so much for your attention, and see you here next